Welcome to the We Watch This Movie podcast. It's a podcast where we sit down and dissect the latest and greatest in films. And today, in our 25th episode, we're going to be going back to 2010 with Nolan's master film, Inception. No better time than our 25th episode, and probably we're going to do another Nolan on the 50th episode, and then another on the 70th. Anyway, if I've got anything to do with it, we will be doing that. If you're new to the podcast, guys, I am Dan Allen Movies on Instagram, joined by Jackson, aka Marshall, on film. How you doing, mate?
Tenant.
If you are new to the podcast, every time we say Tenant, you'll hear the Inception horn, which is interesting. We'll go into why in this podcast, but we usually cover movie news here on the podcast, as well as one review per week. And we stick to that every single week, and then we'll do a few challenges at the end of the episode. Today, it's just all Nolan, it's all Inception, and then we'll finish it off with a little segment I've prepared, 10 interesting facts about Nolan, and then we'll go into a movie challenge that me and Jackson did where he put me to watch Swingers, 1996, Vince Vaughn, Jon Favreau, and I said, Jackson, I want you to watch The Gift, starring Joel Edgerton and Jason Bateman, so we'll go into that a little bit later as well, but it's going to be a massive episode. I hope you guys enjoy. As I said, if you are new to the podcast, me and Jackson, we are big movie buffs going back years and years now, and we're just going through the latest and greatest in film, but also going back to some old classics. You know, we plan to do Blade Runner, we plan to do Alien, Terminator, you know, all these big classic films down the line, but we go through contemporary films and the latest films, aren't we, Jackson?
Absolutely, Dan. And after all that fantastic fluff, how about we get stuck in to the one piece of relevant movie news for this week that's going to set the stage for today's whopper episode covering the 2010 sci-fi action thriller dreamscape, however you want to categorize it, film. Tenet, there's the third use of that cue, has been indefinitely delayed.
No!
Dan, we made a bet. 700 million at the box office. No. I said it couldn't be done. Now, could it happen in 2021? Sure. Will I be getting a Tenet tattoo in 2021 if this grosses 700 million at the box office? Absolutely not. It's not coming anytime soon. In fact, it should have already dropped, if not a fortnight ago, then this last Thursday from when we're recording. This was a pushed back date. We also had August 12th, and now it's gone for good. What are your thoughts here, mate? I can see you bringing out the tissues already.
First, it was going to be June. Then it was going to be July. Then it was going to be August. Now it's indefinitely. I don't know what to say, Jackson. Moviegoers, we're not getting great news this year. Of course, the health and safety of everyone is the paramount reason of this, and we understand why, but it doesn't make it any less saddening. I've been desperate to see this film for years and years, being a massive Nolan fanboy, as a lot of you already know, and you know, I thought July was the time, but unfortunately we're heading into August now with no clear date of when this thing is coming out. We touched on it before. Is it even going to come out this year? Looking at this now, I don't think it is.
Forget August. Are we here in Melbourne, Victoria, ever going to leave our homes? We've still got another 4 weeks of stage 3 restrictions thanks to COVID-19 and some record-breaking numbers here in the metro city and the state overall. So we live in weird and wonderful times. Sadly, none of them involve Nolan's more recent movies. However, they do involve Inception.
Well, there's one good thing. We get to go back to his classics. We've already done The Prestige. We've already done... Is that all we've done from him?
That is all we've done from him. Can you believe it? In 25 episodes, you haven't managed to jam more Nolan movies in this. I think it's very much at my behest. If it wasn't for me, you probably would have had episodes, 1 through 12, every Nolan movie. What would you have called the podcast if it was just Nolan-centric?
I wish I had a joke for that, but I haven't.
I wish you did too.
I haven't come up with one. I'm so
here.
sorry. What would I call it? Nolan North? Only you will get that reference,
Wow.
and no one else. No one else.
That's definitely not a niche reference. Maybe Nolan niche.
How about Nolan Mendelsohn? Oh, okay. Anyway.
God. We've already jumped the shark and we're 5 minutes in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say now, but it
couldn't have been important.
It's not a good time. The only saving grace is that we get to cover Inception today. We get to go back to some of these classic films, although there are plenty of new films coming out. The Rental with Dave Franco, recently Palm Springs, we covered Hamilton. There has been a good flow of films. The Old Guard, Charlize Theron, The Greyhound, Tom Hanks. They're not great films, don't get me wrong, but, nonetheless, there are some films out there to watch. So, yeah, this is only our second Nolan film so far, which, is this the first time we've tackled a director for the second time on this podcast?
I believe it is, Dan. I believe we've seen some actors cross over between some of the reviews we've done so far. And as you said at the top of the podcast, for some new listeners, yes, we mainly focus on contemporary cinema. And this year just hasn't seen a heck of a lot of blockbusters for obvious reasons. Netflix are still producing content. We're seeing other stuff like Palm Springs popping up on Hulu. And for our listeners here in Australia or abroad wanting to get access to some of these movies, hey, we've got to recommend expressvpn.com/we watch this so you can take advantage of that. I'm excited to get stuck into another movie from any director's back catalogue, someone we've covered before, so we can get another fresh and interesting take. Am I as excited to cover something Nolan? Well, we've got the next, could be 2, 3, 4 hours to go through this.
Yeah, I'm billing this at 2.5 hours, this podcast. I do want to say, is this going to get Leo in the top for the most reviewed sort of actor out of all our reviews, or is it Tom Hardy? Oh, Hugh Jackman maybe at the top at the moment, but Leo might overtake him now.
Hang on, how many Hugh popped up? But Hugh's popped up in 2. This is Leo's second.
Hugh's popped up in 3. Hugh's popped Bad Education, Prisoners, and The Prestige. Yeah, so I think he's still leading. A month ago. I think he's still leading, but Leo's going to catch him, I think. And Tom Hardy's got a case as well. But, yeah, we'll see. All great actors. Anyway, Inception, Jackson. Why don't we get into this thing? I'm pumped. We just both watched it. We pressed play at the same time. We paused it at the same time. We got to the end, I think at the same time. Let's get into Inception.
We got to break out of here. Give him the kick. This was not a part of the plan! Wake me up! Wake me up!
Our lovely listeners, before we get into today's episode, we want to take a moment to thank our sensational sponsors for today, the first of which, our people over at ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN.com/we watch this for 3 months free on your 12-month subscription. If you are going to be hijacking planes and hijacking trains and committing all kinds of industrial and dreamscape espionage, you want to be keeping your online activity from being traced with ExpressVPN. If you want to be flying to the Swiss Alps, heading into the Indian urban hellscapes, choosing from 160 locations across 94 countries and keeping your real location hidden from prying eyes, you want to be using ExpressVPN. It's very simple, very easy to use. They support us, we support them. One last time, listeners, expressvpn.com/we watch this for 3 months.
And guys, our second sponsor for today is the PlayStation 5 Central Podcast. It's a podcast hosted by me, all about the PlayStation 5, of course. We're going to go into the news, the leaks, the info, the rumors, and give you everything you want to know about the PS5 and its games, hosted by myself and Viakarth every single week. We also go into other games like The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, and upcoming Marvel Avengers. Big spoiler casts on those. So if you like the full lengthy reviews, check that out, guys. It's over at the PS5 Central Podcast on all your good platform services, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. They support us, we support them. It's my project, so go over there, give it a follow.
Dan, what's Inception about?
Do you have an hour? Do you have 2 hours handy?
Oh, well, look, luckily someone here at the We Watch This Movie podcast. Yeah, please, go for it.
This is going to be the hardest synopsis you'll ever get, I reckon, besides a David Lynch film. Good luck. Here we go. Let's hear it.
It's tough to talk about dreams within dreams and all these other crazy, wacky things, but here goes.
By the way, this is going to be completely spoiler heavy, so watch the film before you listen to this if you haven't already.
And just listen to the synopsis here as we go through. And look, you'll hear I've got some many notes to go over. All right, here goes. Troubled Italian filmmaker Guido Anselmi struggles with creative stasis as he attempts to get a new movie off the ground. Overwhelmed by his work and personal life, the director retreats into his thoughts, which often focus on his loves, both past... Why are you laughing?
I knew it was coming, but I really hoped you wouldn't do it this one time, but you don't fail to make me laugh every time.
You asked me to watch a movie about dreams, and are we not covering 8.5, the 1963 picture by Federico Fellini?
No, unfortunately we're not.
Oh, all right, well, hang on. Just hit the rewind button and we'll try this again.
Jackson, I want the real Inception synopsis. Editor, play the music.
Dom Cobb is the best there is at extraction, except for Chris Hemsworth, stealing valuable secrets inside the unconscious during the mind's vulnerable dream state. His skill has made him a coveted player in industrial espionage, but has also made him an international fugitive, and cost him dearly. Now he may get a second chance at redemption if he can accomplish the impossible. Inception.
Yeah, yes.
Headphones warning for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 hours.
I can't flog the horns in this one. As much as we would love it, there's only so many horns we can take.
Come on, mate. You are pretty horny.
You know, Nolan originally wrote the horns into the script. It was a story beat.
What?
Unfortunately, I didn't write the horns into this podcast as a story beat. So,
for those playing along at home, just add your own horns wherever you like.
When you said Cobb, I couldn't help but think of Cobbs and Shaw.
Cobbs and Shaw.
Obviously, it's Hobbs and Shaw, but I think
you've had your own Freudian dream slip there, mate.
That's an alternate reality. Oh no, Jackson! Everyone knows I love this film.
Really?
So why don't we get your thoughts first?
Okay. My thoughts first. Hey, we're reviewing another movie from our past. So I'm going to go back to when I first saw this at the cinemas. When did this one open? Mid-July. So for our Northern Hemisphere listeners, this was the summer of July. The summer of 2010.
You're sitting there like a fucking baboon.
Dan, we would have been 16 years old. We would have been friends in high school. Is it safe to say this movie was a transformative experience for two cinephiles at 16 years old?
You know what? I wasn't a big cinephile at 16, regrettably. And when I first watched this, I came out stunned and really enjoyed it. But watching it over the years, with each iteration, I came to love it more and more. But go on.
Absolutely. For me, I remember walking out of the cinema thinking, holy crap, how is it going to get any better than this? Excellent cast, great action, cinematography by Wally Pfister is like totally top notch. It's quite unfortunate that he hasn't gone on to put together a work on too many more movies since Transcendence, which will be a future episode, don't you worry, listeners. And really at the time, I'm thinking, Christopher Nolan, who's done the Batman movies, what is this guy going to come up with next? I believe at the time I actually hadn't seen The Dark Knight, so watching this before The Dark Knight was its own interesting watch. Yeah, and I remember falling in love with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Marion Cotillard was great, and it was, at the time, was like, couldn't fault it. Having now seen it, I think it's safe to say probably 6 or 7 times, maybe even more. I haven't started diarizing my films until recently, such as how many times I've watched them or the dates I've watched them, but it's got to be a heck of a lot. 10 years on, we're both 26. Does this still hold up? All right, top of the pod. This is going to be a hot contested debate. Does it still hold up as a great movie? Yes, I think this is a great film. As a theatrical experience, top tier, 10 out of 10 in the movie theaters. As a film on its own, this is by no means a perfect movie. It's not going to get top marks from me. Dan's going to say otherwise. I can see the look on his face right now, and I'm sure as he starts speaking, everyone will hear the tone in his voice change. It's still a heck of a lot of fun.
I'm walking out the door as we speak.
I'm keen to get stuck.
You're going to have to finish this episode by yourself. No,
I'm sure I can waffle for 2 hours about nothing. We've done it before here at the podcast many a time, so it's not going to be any challenge here. Look, you're already trying to take the mic away from me. Stop it, Dan. It's my time.
Sorry.
It's my time.
Go.
Look, without getting really into the nitty-gritty and the spoilers and what I think of some of the technical aspects, here you go, mate. This is your time to shine. Please. Is this your favorite Nolan film? Is this your favorite film? It's yours.
This is not my favorite Nolan film.
Wow.
By any stretch. Okay? I actually put this in the lower tier Nolan films. Would you believe that?
Wow.
I still loved it though. Okay, let's get that. Let me get that straight. But I was debating. I don't want to jump the gun here. I was debating. Over the years, first time I watched it, 16, 8 out of 10. Okay? First time I watched it, 8 out of 10. As I went on, that bumped up to a 9. You know, people do this. We change our reviews all the time, you know.
What do you mean? Never.
You're
definitely not reviewing movies before you watch them.
I gave 10 out of 10 out of 10, and we haven't even seen it yet. No, I gave Don't Mess with a Zohan like a 7 or 8 back in when it first came out. I watched it again the other day. It's a 2 out of 10. It was horrible. Didn't laugh once. Had to turn it off.
Come on, underrated. Adam Sandler's performance in that film. I mean, it ranks up there with Uncut Gems.
I disagree. Gary.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's another one, Uncut Gems. Yeah, I gave that an 8, but when we review that, I reckon a 9's on the cards, definitely. So, yeah, we change, and I thought, well, going into this, I had it at a 9. Will this get to a 10? Well, you'll have to find out at the end of this podcast. But it's safe to say it's an exhilarating film. 2.5 hours long, does not feel that length at all. It's a, a contemporary science fiction thriller. That's what I have it billed at.
Oh, total genre bending. It's everything. You could call it a straight action film in the vein of something like Heat. It could be a sci-fi movie in the vein of something like Brazil. And it could be, a thriller as well. Like a heist film.
It's also a heist film. I think this is an incredible film. I really do. I think Nolan has done a sensational job with this. Of course, he's got a great cast. He's got a great editor. He's got a great cinematographer. He's got Hans on the score.
Hans fucking Zimmer.
What a score that was. We'll go into that later, but he had everything going for him, and he nailed it. And with the pressure of The Dark Knight being his last film heading into this 2 years later, imagine the pressure of that.
Pressure?
You've made a $1 billion film.
Isn't
there's
clout,
pressure to deliver.
Isn't clout the better word for that? I mean, the guy had carte blanche after making The Dark Knight. I'd say The Dark Knight is a better movie than this, in my opinion. And Dan probably will agree. There we go.
Yeah,
he's already agreed. So I feel like after you've made The Dark Knight, you're probably going to get $160 million to make whatever you want.
And he did.
He fucking did. I mean, he made a movie about
and he made whatever
dreams.
he wanted. And if you look at this, it is literally just his imagination running wild, and no other filmmaker could really tackle something like this.
And who could get Leonardo DiCaprio to sign on to play themselves?
Well, Nolan even said that was his one and only choice, was to get Leo. And he got him because he was the hottest director at the time, and probably he's still one of the hottest directors, Nolan. You can't deny it.
Oh, for sure. You might have heard about another film that was meant to come out this year from him.
I think he's in a league of his own, and I'll ram on about it. I think him and Fincher, Tarantino, I have them up in a league of their own at this stage in the cinema landscape. But it was just so fun to watch. The action set pieces, the camera work, the acting. People say this is such a hard movie to follow. Yeah, I guess it was when we were 16. I don't think it was a hard movie to follow now. Although I've watched it 7 times, I might take.
How's it a hard movie to follow when the characters are literally just dumping exposition on you in almost every sequence, just so the audience can follow along? Like Ariadne is literally just a surrogate for the audience. Wait, what's happening?
I was going to say.
Hang on, how does this work? Wait, who's that?
Yeah. They literally say things like that. So, people say it respects your intelligence. Yes, it does in a way, but it also really gives you everything you need to know to grasp what's happening here. People that found this hard to follow are the ones that pick up the phone every 10 minutes, and you might miss some important dialogue. Other films you can get away with that. In this, maybe not so much. Like a Lynch film. People say this is pretentious as well. This film is up its own arse.
It probably is.
You agree? You think it is?
I absolutely think it is.
Okay.
Like, Leonardo DiCaprio does not have much to work with in terms of a protagonist. In fact, he has little to no depth. He's totally selfish, narcissistic, is dragging all these other people along for the ride without being honest to any of them, endangers everyone in the film, still makes it out in the end. I mean, come on, buddy.
He is quite selfish, yeah, but...
And because it's Leo, it's super likable. I've got to cut you off there.
I don't think he was likable, likable
Really?
in this film. No, not really. Not really. I disagree with that. I was just along for the ride. I don't think it's pretentious. And I think you're a hypocrite for saying that, Jackson, unless you agree that Lynch pretentious? Yes. If you say Lynch is pretentious, you have to say Nolan is.
Okay.
Or vice versa.
I'll agree with the sentiment that Lynch's movies are of the art house flavor and can be interpreted as being very pretentious because there's little to anything explained in much of his films. They're certainly not straight narrative features. Even as mind-bending as twisty as Inception gets, a David Lynch picture like Lost Highway, like Mulholland Drive, like Eraserhead can be very hard to follow. But David Lynch himself is not pretentious. He is a simple person, a very genuine person, an honest person.
Now, if you're playing the movie on a telephone, you will never in a trillion years experience the film. You'll think you have experienced it, but you'll be cheated. It's such a sadness that you think you've seen a film on your fucking telephone. Get real.
Do I believe Nolan's the same? Yeah, very much, at least from what we've seen in press and media and interviews that he's done. Also makes pretentious movies that really hit you over the head, swing far bigger, are super epic in scope. So it's kind of from one extreme to the other. But would I say either director is pretentious? No.
Did you have any concerns about it being, a difficult thing for an audience to grasp, or did it feel that it was something that people could grasp?
Well, it's like, fuck it, I mean...
Yeah, well put. I think pretentious, just because a film is complex and has a deeper meaning doesn't make it pretentious. That's what you got to understand. Just because there's a lot of layers to this film, yeah, there's a lot of dream sequences and things like that, exposition dumps, all that sort of stuff. But
there's layers to the plot, Dan. But what's actually going on underneath the surface? There's not much here happening subtextually. There's not much here to tickle your mind beyond making you feel clever because you managed to realize that this symbol kind of points to something else and this scene links to that. But it doesn't actually give you anything to digest. This is another complaint I had about The Prestige. At least with The Prestige, I felt like some of the themes in that movie did point at being something greater, where there's themes of obsession and pride and how men of any age and any profession are going to compete with one another. So I like that kind of ego take. In Inception, this is missing. What's happening subtextually? Because the characters literally tell you what is going on, what every character means. Marianne Cotillard's character, she's not even a character. She's just an extension and a projection of the protagonist, who we don't even really know anything about.
their relationship's at the core of this film.
It's empty. It's totally empty because it's one-sided.
Not necessarily. I think, and also the obsession with reality is a key plot line throughout this as well.
Or the lack thereof.
Or the lack thereof. We can go into that ending. My God, there's multitude of theories for that ending. I understand what you're saying, your complaints with Nolan, but on the other hand, I would throw that back at you for Lynch's films. How is he any different?
Well, how many of his films have you seen to comment on this?
That's another thing. I've only seen a couple, so
I've put you out to dry.
Yeah, you have. Well, if we're talking about Mulholland, though, or The Elephant Man,
let's look at two films. Let's look at two films here. I can't believe it. Last episode, we suggested we'll do a Lynch versus Nolan debate, and here we go, 25. It came early. Let's look at Inception and Mulholland Drive. Where's your point about Mulholland Drive? Hit me.
Well, what's the difference in terms of what they're doing in each film? I don't quite understand your remarks about Nolan being so up his own arse.
Okay, Lynch has put together text and art that hints at so many different themes and can be interpreted so many different ways and kind of eschews any solid one take, any single one interpretation. Is it about the poisonous Valentine that is Hollywood? Is it about actors and actresses' failed dreams? Right. Is it about just one character and one woman, her a kind of failed sexual awakening where she hasn't quite come to grips with herself? Some of these things I kind of mirrored in Inception, especially from the male perspective with Dom Cobb, and it's a movie very much about him coming to grips with his guilt and his conscience. Again, spoilers. I mean, for God's sake, this movie's 10 years old. If you haven't seen it, hurry up, people. Everyone must have seen Inception, like we'll talk about here in my segment later on. That's my point about Mulholland, okay? It provokes deeper discussion, and it's intellectual discussion. It's sound discussion. And the movie itself, its feel, its mood, is an experience. And I know these are some points that you're probably going to
I think the same. I have to say, I think the same thing about Inception. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. You can take this film many different ways. People are still talking about the ending 10 years later. It evokes plenty of discussion. Yes, I understand what you're saying, though, when not... Lynch's films, you can interpret them in many different ways. Maybe not so much in a Nolan film. You can interpret it in one way, but some of the different plot elements you can interpret. You see what I'm saying there? So the inner layer of a Nolan film you can interpret, but the actual
textually.
Yeah, okay.
What about subtextually? What's going on under the surface? What is this comment about? How does this get us really thinking?
Well, it's going to come back to the basics of reality versus a dreamscape. That's the basic here of what we're contemplating and debating. But even something like you can see a projection of Nolan throughout Leo's character of Cobbs in this film, where he's the director. Leo's the director, like a Nolan. You got Tom Hardy, Ames. You've got Arthur,
the actor. A producer?
Yeah, exactly. You see what I'm saying? So you could take it that way, but is that going into something different, you think? Is that going into the metaphorical state of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be commenting on how this film could be interpreted as an exploration of filmmaking and the filmmaking process. A little earlier, for our listeners who have seen it, I did bring up a synopsis of 8.5, which is a surreal film by, Federico Fellini. It's more than 50 years old. It's coming up to 60 years old now. If you can stick out old films, I implore you to go watch it. I watched it about a month ago, and that was an awesome viewing experience. Challenging.
How long is
it?
It
is in black and white. I think it came in at like 138 minutes. Oh, yeah. I'm just throwing a number at the wall, but it was probably about 2 hours and 10 or 20 minutes.
138 minutes, that's so precise.
I know, right?
It must be
that. I'm throwing a number at the wall, but it's 138 minutes. It's in Italian, but it has little dialogue, a heck of a lot less dialogue than you do.
Margariti.
There's the cue. It has a lot less dialogue than you'll find in a Nolan film. and it has another great score as well. That's a movie that comments on the filmmaking process. Much deeper discussion than I believe you'll get something here. So, okay, one theory how we can interpret this, it's about filmmaking. Each character points to someone else who'd show up in your production team. Great. What does that mean?
Yeah, so you're talking about deeper meanings.
Yeah, and is it something about it's a movie about a director's vision? Because everything in this movie is about Cobb's vision, whether it's in Cobb's dream, I don't know, but it's all about his vision, how they're carrying everything out.
So you don't think the meanings explored in this are deep enough for your liking? Is what you're saying? I don't mean
not for my liking,
okay,
because they don't resonate enough with me. They might resonate more with you, but they don't resonate enough with me. Emotionally, I feel like the heart of this film isn't strong enough.
I would agree with you there.
Is it? Hang on, I'm gonna cut you off because I want to raise one more point, and then the floor is yours yet again, my friend. This is the most 25 episodes. This is the most heated we've been. You told me to have a coffee before this, and now you're feeling the pain. So, I remember seeing this 10 years ago, and did the emotional core of this film, the heart, the relationship between Mole and between Cobb, hit me? No, not really. And that seems to be something in Nolan's films, with the exception of maybe one or two, that seem to be missing. Just that final X factor, like you said in Palm Springs, that emotional driver that's going to get you wrapped up. It's not there in this movie. I don't feel it. Even though on this rewatch, I recognize that it's been there the entire time, and it very much is a personal story about Cobb and about his dealing with his own interpretation of his wife, who in this movie, he admits it, she's not perfect because it's not actually her. It's just what he projects her to be. But it still doesn't mean much. It just doesn't mean much.
In terms of emotion, I agree with you. This doesn't hit home like an Interstellar does, where there are tears to be shed in that film. In this film, not so much. Just some powerful moments here and there, but not enough to bring you over the line, okay? That's why every film that I've given a 10 out of 10, there has been a big, powerful, emotional moment or several. Okay.
You want like an overwhelming movie, right?
Yeah. I think of A Lion, 2016, the ending scene. I won't spoil it. If you have seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I haven't.
I think of Interstellar, the many scenes in that film. Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, The Dark Knight, okay, it didn't make me cry. That's the one exception I have, because it's just a fucking awesome film, okay? Everything about it, okay? That's the one exception, and big Batman fan, okay? So I get a pass for that. This film, I understand. There's not as much emotion around it. Yeah, there's this relationship here, but it never gets to those heights, does it?
No. And I'd argue in 2010 that a movie with something deeper going on emotionally, starring Leo, go seek out Martin Scorsese's Shutter Island. Is it as much a technical marvel as this movie? Good God, no. What's going on here practically in this film with the action, the exotic locations, how everything looks is totally brilliant. But the best and worst of Nolan is on full display. The dialogue for most of it is pretty shit and on the nose.
You reckon?
Awesome action, but some of it just isn't filmed the best. At times it can be quite hard and disorienting to tell what's going on. In something like The Dark Knight, it's forgiven because the experience and the bow that everything is wrapped up in, being the Batman mythos, is great. Plus you have Heath Ledger, and if Heath Ledger was in this, very different film. No doubt, if he was still around, Nolan would have found a way to weave the guy in. In this, though, some of these things are a bit distracting. Maybe the disorienting feeling I get from some of the action kind of leads... that kind of works with the idea of this being a dream, so you're not quite sure where bullets are coming from and how it's all happening, and it all gets a bit ridiculous because, yes, we're in a dream within a dream within a dream, but it's just not quite perfect. It just doesn't quite push it up there.
Are you sure you want to make that statement on our podcast that Nolan's Inception dialogue was shit? You got one chance to take this back. Do you want to use another word?
No, it's shit and it's clunky.
Oh, guys, please. Please,
Dan,
tell this guy.
I've got a couple quotes here. His subconscious is militarized.
That's the greatest line ever. I popped
His subconscious is militarized.
Over that.
Listeners, you can hear me rustling through notes here as I look for something else that I highlighted, and I had to send it straight through to Dan.
What about the line with Leo? Going into the recesses of our minds. You know, how good is that? Like, come on, there's some top-notch lines in here. Not all the dialogue is perfect. Not all the dialogue is even great. But this is a very dialogue-heavy film with a lot to try and explain. I think you got to give him props. This is all original work as well. All his films leading up to this, besides Following, were adapted or comic books, whatever. This was completely him and his mind. I think he's done a phenomenal job with the script. I followed along quite well. I never thought this is shit dialogue. Not once. Yes, there were some exposition dumps, but it was needed.
It's 70% exposition. I wrote down
not that
here.
high.
I wrote down here. It must have been just over the 2-hour mark when we've got the assault on the Piz Gloria Fortress from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Any nod to that Bond movie, I'm totally
That's one of his
sign me
favourite
up.
Bond films, by the way, as you could tell. Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's clearly one of Eames' favourites as well, which is why it
And you
pops
saw
up.
you saw the behind the scenes shot I showed you as well of how that was made on the lot.
Please don't ruin it for me. I don't want to hear about that experience again. We don't need to remind our listeners that was actually a miniature shot just outside the workshop location. Sorry, everybody, it wasn't a real mountain. So there's a line here. I've got, are you destroying those parts of his mind? So 2 hours and 10 minutes in, Ariadne has to ask, I think it's Eames or Cobb, when they're shooting these projections in the snow. Like, come on. At this point, your brain is switched off. 2 hours and 10 minutes into the film. We don't need this stuff. As a thought experiment, I'd love to watch maybe like an anime version of this, or at least a re-edit that has all bits of dialogue stripped out. Let's just hear Hans Zimmer's score. Let's hear the Foley work where we've got a lot of the gunshots. That's it. Imagine that. Would that be better? I'd argue it would, because I think the dialogue really drags this down.
So you wouldn't give this high marks, like top.
I've already said
marks.
it's held back. Yeah.
But you think what is here? What is displayed? There is the workings of a 10 out of 10 in your mind.
Yeah.
If all the pieces
absolutely,
aligned.
for sure.
Yeah.
Nolan loves to craft these interesting puzzles, but sadly, he does get lost up his own arse a bit. He needs someone else to come in. I don't know if it's necessarily his brother Jonathan, but he's a director. He understands that these pictures are his vision, but they do require the work of others, the input of others to help perfect it. Maybe there's some more work here that could have been done by the actors, but hey, if you're signing on for a Christopher Nolan feature, I'm sure you'd be happy to be there. I know you and I, Dan, certainly would.
So going back to the deeper meaning, that also held you back? Because I don't think it was about that inherently. This is I wouldn't say it's a popcorn flick.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's
110%.
Well, I wouldn't say it is because it is the story is quite complex when you nail it down.
If you wanted to
for
switch
a
off,
general
though, you
moviegoer,
could.
this isn't. Most general moviegoers that when I talk about Inception, they sigh. They go, "Oh, not that crap." It's too full on for most people. But critics like us, IMDb fans, Letterboxd fans, yeah, we all love it. We love to dissect film. We enjoyed the film. General moviegoers, the Fast and the Furious crowd, this wasn't for them. Most of them, I think, from when I talk to people back in the day and still to this day, general moviegoers, they go Inception, yeah, no thanks.
Well, maybe if they had a Bond girl who was stripped down and maybe, like a black character just spouting some jokes, then they'd probably like it a bit more. But then you really do just have Fast and Furious.
Well, I just don't think it's about the deeper meaning. I think he had a story to tell and he told it well. I don't think you necessarily need this deeper meaning you're talking about in every single film that we watch.
I just want to be tickled.
Okay. Well, what would you ask Nolan if you had him in a room now? What would you ask Nolan about Inception?
Why didn't you do a third or fourth pass at the dialogue? Oh, come on, that's being a bit harsh.
We finally get an interview with Nolan after hundreds of episodes. Hey, Nolan, why didn't you hand off Inception screenplay to your brother?
I thought we've got him coming
later,
for
guys.
episode 26. I guess not after this episode.
Oh, he didn't return my call. We'll go
bugger.
into that later. Anyway. Going back, Jackson, 2.5 hours long. Did it feel like a slog? Did it feel like, to me, it just breezed through that 2.5 hours?
100%.
Couldn't have been any
Very
quicker.
tightly edited.
Because I watched The Color Purple, which is also around the 2.5 hour mark the other day. That felt long. And I think Inception might be about the same length, maybe a little bit shorter, but that felt really long compared to Inception, which was just breezing through. The pacing in Inception, I think, is phenomenal. This is one of the best paced films you can ever see, and the editing as well by Lee Smith. Take a bow, brother. What an edit. I can't even believe he was not nominated for an Oscar. But yeah, the pacing I thought was on point.
Oh, 110%. I can't argue with you there. This is going to be one of the rare times in this episode that we're both going to agree. I've got written down here in my notes. How did they pull this off?
It legitimately, the edit must have been a nightmare.
In fact,
seriously, 230 different, what was it, reality to dream.
Well, what about the third act where we have 3 different action set pieces all going on at once?
Oh my God.
We have Yusef driving the van, we have Arthur having the zero gravity brawl, and then we have the Snow Fortress assault. And all of this made sense.
There was 4 dreams going on at once, wasn't there? Or 3?
What was it, 5? Depending on your interpretation of what happens in the quote-unquote real world, it could be 6 or 7.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean...
It just goes on and on and on.
It just goes on and on, doesn't it? Oh, yeah. But that editing job, Lee Smith and Ozzy, give him a clap. That guy is the best editor in the world, in my opinion.
Whew.
Yeah. You heard it here from me. You take a look at this guy's filmography and what he's been able to accomplish over the years. What's he done recently? 1917, Jackson.
Oof.
Was his most recent edit. Dunkirk, Spectre, Interstellar, The Dark Knight Rises, Inception, The Dark Knight, Prestige, Batman Begins.
Oh, aren't those all movies you
like?
like?
The Truman Show. Come on, Jackson. Give him a nod.
We'll give him a
Surely.
bow. The We Watch This Movie podcast, Lee Smith, we want to thank you, fellow countrymen.
I want him on the show. I'd love to dissect his brain.
If only he returned your calls.
I know. Hey, you never know. Quarantine. They might have some time in their hands. Well,
if he lives here in Melbourne, he definitely does.
What about the cinematography of this thing?
What about
Another highlight? Another highlight from me? What about you?
Oh, that's probably my number one highlight of the whole picture. Going back this time and wanting to look out for these shots and all the expert work, I should say, that Wally Pfister does. It's incredible. Just one quick standout, the zero gravity brawl with JGL, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who it's a shame he's not in more these days.
Iconic.
Oh, and I kid you not, I'd be hard-pressed if there's one identical shot or anything that's framed exactly the same in that whole sequence, and how he manages to keep that coherent, and we can follow the geography throughout that fist fight JGL has with the various projections is like... That must have been near impossible to film, yet it's just masterful. Wally Pfister, take a bow as well. And you know what?
This film has so many iconic moments. You know, even just the spinning totem is so iconic. The horns by Hans Zimmer, iconic. That scene, iconic. Another great scene was Joseph on, I should call him by his character's name. Arthur. When he's on the stairs and the cinematography work there where we turn and it looks like he's going down the stairs.
Oh, the Penrose steps.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that scene. I just noticed it today in today's viewing more than I ever had. Really incredible work, that scene. And it's paired with visual effects, of course, but as a cinematographer, you've got to know what's going to happen in that 3D room, in that effects room, and work with it. So
yeah, and much of Nolan's films are shot, well, I should say much of Nolan's films, rather than shot, all have practical effects and as little CGI as possible. So these would be very expensive and very elaborate to set up. So to go in there and get these shots is masterful stuff. In fact, Dan, you're pointing out some of the technical aspects. Let's talk about the over 205 awards this movie was nominated for and the 95 wins it has. Let's go through every one of them. For brevity's sake, we're just going to talk about the Academy Awards. I can see Dan shaking his head already. Talking about 300 different categories was not going to happen here at the We Watch This Movie podcast. This is already going long enough. This had 9 nominations at the 2010 Oscars, which is incredible. I felt like this was kind of snubbed that year, but I guess not. I should say the 2011 Academy Awards, the 83rd. Dan, this had nominations for Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, Best Art Direction, and Best Original Score. And wins for Best Cinematography, Best Sound Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Visual Effects. 4 wins at the 2011 Academy Awards. That's massive.
Jackson, original screenplay nomination.
Oh.
You called it shit. I'm sorry. Come on.
Hey.
Although I don't agree with the Oscars because they didn't give Lee Smith a nod and Hans Zimmer got snubbed over Social Network, I will literally barge down the Oscars office and kill every single one of them. That is a disgrace.
Whoa.
That
Can
is
we get
a
that cut
absolute-
out? Can we get that cut
You
out
can
of the
get
pod?
this soundbited. That is a disgrace. Hans Zimmer has put on the most iconic soundtrack in history, or one of the top 10 of all time. He was not the winner. Social Network. Okay, we love David Fincher. We love The Social Network. It's a great film. I'm sorry. How many people copied the iconic horns of Inception? How illustrious of a duo is Nolan and Zimmer? There's not a single duo in cinema right now as good as those two, in my opinion. The score in this film, incredible, elevates the film like no other score of that year. Didn't get the win. Come off it. I'm sorry. Social Network, a good score. Okay? It's a good score, not as good as Nolan and Inception. I'm not the only one that thinks that. I'll tell you right now.
I'd argue Sir Kenneth Branagh and Dame Judi Dench are a better duo, but that's just me. Okay, Best Original Screenplay, Chris Nolan. The dialogue, I mean, it's got to drag it out of a nomination, but this is a tight freaking screenplay. To get all of this delivered, to keep the audience along, I understand, I get it.
From the story perspective, not so much the dialogue. Yeah.
And what is happening surface level is pretty damn great. There's no denying this is a fun movie.
So look, it was good that it won for sound mixing and editing, and they've combined those now for the next Oscars, haven't they?
Really?
They're now one category, I believe. Yeah,
Wow.
They're finally putting them together because most, the general public doesn't know. Obviously, the professions of sound, there's so many different elements to sound, that sound mixing and editing, there's other categories as well you could go into there, but for the general public watching, no one can distinguish what they are. Yes, you and me can, but the general 20 million that watch the Oscars or whatever the number is, they don't know any better. So they're putting them together. But yes, this one, rightly so. But where's that music win? I just think it's wrong, Jackson. You disagree or what?
Okay, listeners, I don't know if we've mentioned it here before. However, I'll come clean. I haven't seen The Social Network. So I'm so sorry, but I cannot comment.
You're kidding. No. You are joking.
No joke. I've owned a Blu-ray copy of it.
My goodness.
At that time,
me.
I was, 16, 17 when that hit Blu-ray? Yeah, I was probably 17. When that came out at the cinemas. I bought the Blu-ray. I was working at a DVD video store at the time. God, aren't those things of the past. And I just have never opened it.
We need to do it because I watched it the other day and I'm sorry, I don't think it's this 10 out of 10 that people are claiming it is, but that's just me, I think it's a fantastic film, but I just wouldn't give it that 10 that a lot of people do.
Well, you know what, mate? It didn't win Best Picture at the 2011 Academy Awards, and neither did this.
No. And this also won, obviously, for visual effects, which we've gone on about. I mean, the visual effects, this was by far the best. Not many films get nominated for visual effects and Best Picture. I mean, that doesn't happen often because usually you get the Star Wars and Avengers Endgame.
Yeah,
they're
usually
the ones that get.
your genre pictures are the ones that end up in the Best Visual Effects category, and
So that's an achievement.
Rarely end up in the Best Picture.
That's a massive achievement, in my opinion. And it's those infamous scenes, the slow-mo, the city's crumbling in the final act, the spinning hallway, even though that's probably all practical, isn't it?
Well, hey, what about often imitated, never duplicated, Alan Page and Leonardo DiCaprio in the Parisian cafe and everything that happens after that? Not only do we get the fruit baskets and everything exploding, but then we get the entire city turning on itself. We get them walking up the road. We're not even in spoilers here. What an episode this is turning out to be.
There is no spoilers, Jackson. There is no cue. We're in spoilers already. You haven't seen this film. What are you doing? Yeah, that is an infamous scene. Another iconic scene. This is what I'm saying. How many iconic things about this film? It's only 10 years old. And it's already one of the classics. it's up there in everyone's top lists. I mean, it's got everything. I can't sing its praises enough. Visual effects, 10 out of 10 from me.
Yeah, looks spectacular and superb. And you know what, mate? Audiences back in 2010, they really did agree. Even though you've pointed out that this may not be for casual moviegoers, which I'm going to disagree with. I think this is a bit of like a pop masterpiece because you kind of get almost the best of many worlds, which is why it's holding it back, such as a popular leading man in Leonardo DiCaprio, an awesome cast with good-looking people, and the box office takings reflected that. So, reported production budget here of 160 million, and supposedly it had a marketing budget of about 100 million or likely even more.
Only
well, back
that
in 2010,
that seems very small compared to an A24 film.
Yeah, exactly. I know. We're going to cover The Gift a little bit later, and I think that had a budget of about 5 million. So
think about it though, Jackson. Sorry to cut you off.
You should be.
Ari Aster's Midsummer. Okay, whatever. What was the budget on that? It was under 10 million,
15.
right? 15 million, okay. That budget, Inception's marketing budget in the US, probably more than that entire budget. Just think about that.
Absolutely. You know, and you
insane.
know what? Midsommar made for 15 million. This made for 160. Go back a few episodes, listeners. Artemis Fowl, 120 million. How did a movie that cost close to as much as Inception
that can't
look
be
like
right,
such
Jackson.
utter trash? That is 110% correct.
That is insane. God, that is a shit film.
Absolutely. There's a nice little sidebar. Back to the main event.
I was talking about Midsummer, not Artemis.
This grossed at the worldwide box office 830 million worldwide. And you know what? Of that, 36.5 million was here in Australia, where it showed in over 422 theatres. This was the fourth highest grossing movie of 2010 for Aussie moviegoers and the fourth highest movie worldwide. So this went gangbusters. And your prediction, Tenet to get 700 million, had it dropped this year without COVID, look, you probably would have been right.
Hey, Aussie moviegoers love a bit of Nolan, and that's just shown 36 million in Australia is massive.
Huge
That's
money.
huge money in Australia. That's on another level. That's like getting into the Star Wars and Avatar sort of territory, I think, isn't it?
Absolutely. Although, to be fair, Avatar in 2010 did bring out 70 million at the Australian box office. It actually dropped in December of 2009, and I believe it even got a re-release in 2010. It's going back 10 years ago for us, but I vividly remember seeing it a couple times across a 12-month period in the cinemas.
But usually a really successful film, guys, in Australia is like
20.
I reckon 8 to 15.
Oh, yeah, great point.
Yeah, seriously, I reckon 8 to 15 is pretty good in Australia. 20 is really good. So to get 30, I think's a big success. But 850, yeah, that's half the reason I said Tenet 700. I think Tenet could go over the Inception mark. It's just that Inception was such a phenomenon. The visual effects, a lot of the stuff going on. You got Leo at the helm of his career.
And the plot,
And the plot, and Nolan, and just after Dark Knight, all the pieces were aligning for this. So whether as Tenet is it looks to be more experimental. It doesn't have that all-star
More experimental
cast.
than this?
I don't know. We'll find out. We don't know much about Tenet. Although I'm already pinging it at a 10 out of 10. We don't know anything about it really. So who knows? Hey, that's another question. Is Tenet a sequel to Inception? Is it within the world?
Oh my God.
Are you? What fence are you on? Or you haven't
Talk
taken
about
any-
pretentious. Just who cares? Seriously.
Who cares? Jackson, indulge me for just this moment.
Okay, sure, let's do it. Have we got any characters returning from Inception to the best of our knowledge so far?
Hey, maybe Tom Hardy sneaks his way back with a mask on. You don't know.
All right.
We haven't seen it yet.
All right. You've done it now. The cat's out of the bag. Tom Hardy as Ames. Please, Dan, tell us about your love for this man, this actor, this character.
This was a much better performance than Capone, wasn't it? Hey, no, Tom Hardy. This was the first time him and Leo worked together. He would soon, later on, be in The Revenant, where they would both see critical and commercial success. With
And
that
both
film.
end up in the snow with different results.
Yeah, no, he was great. He had more screen time than I remember as well.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know if that's a detriment to him, but yeah, I mean, he was serviceable. It wasn't anything amazing, but I just I love the way he talks and the way he portrays himself in this. I remember reading he thought that Nolan had chosen him for this role because he'd seen Bronson. And Nolan said, "No, I haven't seen Bronson. I think you're perfect for the role." So it's interesting. I love their relationship. They've been in, he's worked with him 3 or 4 times. 3 out of the 4 with masks, I think. But yeah, well, look, when Matt Damon turned up in Interstellar,
Spoilers.
I was secretly thinking. I was secretly hoping it was Tom with a mask on.
Mate.
In an alternate reality.
I don't want to say that actor's name again because the surprise with that experience when I watched
I
that movie for the first time a couple months ago. Oh my God. You thought
didn't
Tom
know?
Hardy in this was... I didn't know. I had no idea.
Okay.
I went into that movie as blind as possible. I'm glad I did. That's to come, listeners. Episode 50, 75, 100, 250. Whenever we get there, that's going to be one heck of a run through.
Do you reckon Interstellar, do you reckon that's going to be longer than this? We're already going an hour now. Do you reckon Interstellar's going to be longer than this?
Well, look, we could just play the score for the full 2.5 hours. And I'm sure we'd have many listeners just happy.
I'm
with
glad
that.
you're
Probably
a Hans
enjoy it even
fan.
more than us talking.
I'm glad you're a Hans fan. You've got to. Let's go back to the score here. Tell me, you love the score.
We already have so few segments, and you're just totally taking this. You are the train coming in that rainy New York street, derailing us every single time.
Okay, we'll go back.
Movies.
Go with what you were saying. I'm sorry. Take us.
No,
away.
I'm done. I'm leaving this dream. Okay, Arthur, kick me out. I'm gone.
Hey, if we were in limbo for 50 years, how do you think we'd go growing old together?
We saw it, mate. It's called Palm Springs. It's not going to happen. I'll be coming at you, locking you up in my garage with a whip and a black t-shirt. Don't you worry.
The floor's yours. Go on.
Tom Hardy, serviceable. I'm
I
sorry,
think that's
Tom
a bit
Hardy.
Harsh. It's a bit harsh.
He is the standout from the cast in this movie.
I wouldn't say standout by no means. Would I say standout?
Who is?
I think Leo's a standout for sure. Yeah, he puts on the best performance. He has the most screen time, of course, but he's stellar here. I reckon he's top notch here. He didn't get nominated for anything because it wasn't that sort of performance. But as a leading man, I didn't think he was that likable. But the performance he put on when Mal dies was a big scene for him. Really emotional. The ending, I really believed this guy as Cobbs.
As Cobbs and Shaw.
Cobbs and Shaw, correct. We're talking about that movie, right? The alternate. As Cobb. What's his first name? Dom?
Yeah, like Dom Toretto.
Only Michael Caine and Mel say his first name. There's a little...
that might bleed into one of the theories that we'll get into here in a moment.
It will.
Cillian Murphy, if this guy hadn't had done Peaky Blinders now for the last, 5, 6, however many years that show's been going, he would have been bigger. He might only be 44 years old at the time of this recording. I want this guy in more movies as leading man, because on this watch, now 7 or 8 times, I thought he really did great with what he had to work with. Wasn't a heck of a lot. He did have more character development, though, than Leo did. And it's not Leo's fault. It's not his best. He's just a cipher here for Chris Nolan.
I reckon Cillian was great.
Yeah, Ellen Page, what happened to her?
Where has she gone?
Yeah.
Geez, she was hot property, though, around 2010.
I have down here in my notes, Ellen Page was hot shit in 2010.
She was. Was it Juno around that time?
Yeah, it was about 2007, but that absolutely catapulted her.
Yeah. And then she was in Beyond Two Souls, a game. She was the star of that.
The PS3 game.
She's had a good career, but no, I haven't seen her in much in recent memory, whether that's from her own choice or Hollywood's blacklisted her or I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, listeners, please let us know. Another guy who's gone awry is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's crazy to look at this cast. Back in 2010, JGL had second billing underneath Leo. He had billing over Ellen Page, over Tom Hardy. What is going on there?
I believe that Joseph here put on the worst performance of the movie.
Oh, really?
One-dimensional is what I would say.
That was kind of the point. Eames says it. He's a stick in the mud.
I wouldn't say it was a bad performance by any means. It's more on the good side, but in terms of the entire cast, he was the most lackluster for me. It was very one-dimensional. Yes, he was doing a lot of exposition, which didn't help. Okay, it didn't help his cause at all. But he wasn't all that likable. He had one good line. I remember he had one good line where he said, "Kiss me," to Ellen Page's character, and she says, "What for?" And he's like, "I just wanted to try." It was trying to be funny, and it got me a little bit, but it showed a little bit of personality. But yeah.
It was about it was maybe the fourth of 5 jokes in this whole 2.5 hour
Nolan's
runtime.
not known for his jokes, guys, okay? He's not known for his comedy relief. Unless you call Bane comedy, then The Dark Knight Rises is a full-blown comedy. But otherwise, he is not known for his jokes, is he?
Imagine the version of The Dark Knight Rises where Kevin James plays Bane.
That could be billed as the worst film of all time if that happened in an alternate reality. That's not the dream I want to wake up in.
There's a couple others here in the cast stand that I want to point out.
Yeah, go on.
Ken Watanabe. Yes, thank you. That's what I want to see. I remember 10 years ago watching it going, holy crap, who's this guy?
Saito.
And again, rewatching it. Legend.
Absolute legend. The Last Samurai. Incredible performance from him. Godzilla. He's the star of that as well. He's been in a lot of good movies. He really has.
I want to see him in more. At the time of recording here, he's only 61 years old. This is his first major performance in an English motion picture, at least I believe speaking English. I want to see more from this guy. He killed it in Inception.
It's funny.
He absolutely took a one-note character and brought Saito to life.
Well, it's funny. He'd only been in The Last Samurai. That was pretty much his only, what we call Western film at the time. Yeah. And then he was in Batman Begins. And Nolan said, I didn't give him enough to work with. And brought him into Inception. And thankfully he did, because he is one of the standouts. I think he was great.
Yeah, if it's not Tom Hardy, it's absolutely him.
Who else have we got? We've got...
Pete Postlewaite? Is he better in The Town or better in this?
What about Nolan's son, who's actually in this film? Did you know that?
Oh, here we go.
Christopher Nolan's son plays Leo's son in this film.
Oh,
Magnus
Nolan. If it wasn't obvious enough who Leo's playing, we've really just got to hit them over the head.
Come on. Magnus Nolan puts on a brilliant performance.
Is his name Magnus?
It is the Magnus. The Magnus of the film, mate. Yeah, didn't you know that? One of Nolan's 4 children is in this film. I love that as a little Easter egg going through IMDb. Hopefully we see him in more movies, eh? What were your thoughts on Marion?
Marion Cotillard. It's not a bad performance. She has a very challenging task ahead of her because having to portray someone's projection of who they believe their wife to be, that's very complicated. Mm-hmm. And even though I've seen it 7 or 8 times, I still feel like I haven't watched this movie and quite grasped what she was doing. Like, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I know you don't like me being on the fence, Dan Allen movies, but I'm kind of torn between whether I'd like it or I don't. I feel like I do like it, but this just isn't her movie to win.
She always plays seductive roles, seductive women.
She's a femme fatale. Yeah, for sure.
Always, like no other role. Like that
She's French. She can't help it.
She plays it well. You know what? You know what's funny? Originally, Kate Winslet was supposed to be in this. Nolan wanted Kate Winslet for this role, a Titanic throwback. Thank God.
That's a different movie.
Different movie.
That's such a different
I'm thankful
movie.
Marion is in this. I can't think of anyone else to play this. Maybe it's just ingrained in me, the dreamscapes and how she plays the role. I'm on the fence that it was beautifully done. I can't fault her. I really do believe that.
No fault of her or Leo, but I feel like that there could have been a stronger pairing with better chemistry.
I reckon the chemistry
it wasn't bad, but
100%
maybe that's what was missing. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I have to disagree with you. I thought the chemistry was there. Not to the best we've ever seen by any stretch of the imagination, but I think enough was there to service that. What about final one I want to touch on in the actors. Michael Caine. He gets 2 minutes of screen time, but boy is he good as Miles.
And about 3 days of shooting.
Boy is he good as Miles, hey? You got to get him in there.
Even better, he gets to sit down on a Nolan set.
Wow, Jackson. If you don't know what Jackson's referring to, he's referring to the article that came out this year where apparently Nolan doesn't like chairs on set. It's a fabricated thing, Jackson. Anne Hathaway meant for the actors, the main actors, who are in a scene. He doesn't want them to go and sit down, not the freaking cast and crew, but anyway.
All right, here's a point about Michael Caine playing Alfred Pennyworth. I mean, well, he's always playing the same character in every film. Come on.
I sound like this bloody moron. I mean, my name's Michael Caine.
The jokes write themselves here at the We Watchers Movie Podcast. Here's a great point, all right? In a movie full of characters playing father figures, the one point I want to mention, Michael Caine, his character Miles is Marianne Cotillard, her character Maul, father, okay? Is he sending Ariadne into the dream world to find out what really happened to his daughter?
Wow, that's a theory I have never heard. Wow.
Is he helping out Leo, or is he sending Ariadne in there? Because he sets her up as, you want to get this person on board. He's a little bit hesitant at first. It kind of feels like he's kind of embellishing Cobb in this fantasy, but is he actually doing this to find out what really happened? Because even he doesn't know.
Well, now that you say that, I've never thought of that before, but I 100% agree. That's
one popular fan theory.
No, I think that is 100% for sure. Thinking about it now, that's a very interesting theory. I'm glad you threw that at me. Yeah, no. Even though he only has 2 minutes of screen time, the justification of that, the way he's portrayed, points in that direction. Because it was funny that he didn't take that much convincing, did he? It felt like, it would have, if it wasn't that, he would have taken a lot more convincing to throw one of his pupils in there. Don't you think?
Yeah. Michael Caine, always a great actor in Nolan's films, no matter how small the part, no matter how few days he spends there shooting on set. He's always giving a subtle, nuanced performance, such as Interstellar or The Prestige or even in the Batman movies. Here, maybe that was part of it as well. Just a bit of massaging. So there is some subtext going on in the movie, which sounds very hypocritical here an hour and a half in.
Hey, you know what?
I'll zip it.
Jackson, I'm frothing at the mouth. I want to hear your segment. I want to hear how this rated. Editor, play the cue.
IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, audience score, and Letterboxd.
Dan, I'm so glad you asked. And let's start off things a little bit differently. Let's kick it off with Letterboxd. What did our favourite movie social media reviewing website, shout out guys, come on, you want to finally sponsor us, think of Inception? At the time of recording, Inception is number 193 on Letterboxd best reviewed narrative feature films. It's been watched by just shy of 800,000 members, favorited over 300,000 times, and has nearly 144,000 5-star ratings.
Wow.
Dan, this means a final score of 4.25 on these.
I sound like this bloody moron.
Meaning a final score of 4.2 out of 5, which is nothing to turn your nose up at on that website.
4.25. And we were discussing this earlier. Parasite was leading with a 4.5 or 6, was it? 4.5?
Yeah, I think it's about 4.6, which is huge.
It was up there with Godfather, Seven Samurai. A lot of Kurosawa movies were up there as well, which was no surprise. So, yeah, it's in good company. Inception 4.2 sounds about right. Really does.
On the other end of the spectrum, let's go with Metacritic. Metacritic, a 74 out of 100.
Wow.
This is the website's most discussed film of 2010.
Yep.
Number 2 for the most shared movie of 2010, and number 75 for Metacritic's best film of 2010. Number 1 goes to The Social Network. Not your favorite, Dan. Didn't win the Oscar, but just a bit to point out. On Metacritic, 8.8 out of 10 from the audience, from over 4,000 user ratings. So very similar to Letterboxd there. Rotten Tomatoes. What do you reckon? What percentage of critics, Dan, do you think liked this one?
100. In the 90s.
You're close. You're very close. It is certified fresh with 307 critics giving it a positive review, or 87% of critics' reviews collated have
Come
given
on,
it a
let's
positive.
get that to 90. Get us on the site.
You know what, though? It's got an average rating of 8.12 out of 10. That average rating at 8.12 out of 10, we've seen some movies that are 92, 93, 94 that actually rank lower. I know we went into this on our last episode, Palm Springs, but for our new listeners, we just want to remind you then. On Rotten Tomatoes, a movie that's 100 or 98, that doesn't mean it's a 98 out of 100 film or it's a perfect movie. That just means critics liked it. They at least gave it a positive review.
Yep.
Audience members, 91% of them have given this a score of 3.5.
You must be so embarrassed!
Have given this a score of 3.5 out of 5 or a 7 out of 10 with almost 600,000 user ratings. And it comes in at an average score, a whopping 4.38 out of 5. So clearly audiences have enjoyed this film more than critics. And I think part of the dialogue could be part of that problem too. Finally, Dan, you wanted to hear this segment. The big one.
Big one.
IMDb.
Yeah.
This is the third most reviewed film on their entire website.
Of all time.
It is just shy of 2 million user ratings. In fact,
that's huge.
I'm pretty certain to say in the next 5 years, this is going to clock up another 12,000 ratings, and that'll put it at the 2 million mark. This is the number 13 highest rated movie on IMDb with an 8.8 out of 10. Some films that it's in the same league of: another Nolan classic, The Dark Knight, Pulp Fiction, The Shawshank Redemption, The Godfather Part 2.
Oh, how's that for a list to be a part of?
Absolute murderer's row.
8.8 with 1.9 million reviews. That is insane, man. Absolutely crazy. Like, there's no denying objectively this film is fantastic. You know, with that sort of response, I can't believe it's the third most reviewed film on IMDb of all time. Of all time. It came out 10 years ago. Shawshank has 10 years on it, more, you know? So I just think it's huge. You can't understate the importance of those, even though, yes, you can call IMDb fans, Letterboxd fans, they're big movie buffs, but to get 2 million people on your site and review something is astounding. Astonishing. It really is.
It is. It's interesting, though. Think back to 2010. Which social media platforms were around to people to voice their opinions on? Some of our listeners may have found us on Instagram, may have found us on Facebook, and most certainly have found us on Letterboxd. Which of these were around back then?
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right.
Where were movie buffs going to discuss films?
Yeah, IMDb. Number
they were
one.
going to IMDb.
I think they still are as well. You know, I don't know whether Letterboxd has overtaken them now. That's another whole debate we can have maybe one day. But for sure, yeah, you're 100% hit the nail on the head. So Jackson, just going back, we've talked about the cinematography, how grounded it is. You can feel the Nolan film. Like, you can just tell this is a Nolan film from the cinematography, the look of the camera. We've talked about the visual effects. I don't think we've given enough time to the soundtrack, Jackson. I want to know your thoughts. How good is this soundtrack? Where does this rank for you in all-time soundtracks? Are you giving it as much hype as I am? I think this is in the top 10 of all-time soundtracks.
I'm waiting for you to say that since watching this and hearing this soundtrack, it's now inspired you to listen for the score and everything else in any other film you watch. Is that where you're leading?
Yeah. Correct.
This popped up in the last episode. I do love a good needle drop. And while we have a pretty cool needle drop in this movie that shows up again and gets slowed down, and part of the score is inspired by it, in 2020, it's not my favorite movie score. But it's a really good one. It's really good. I'm not writing Hans Zimmer's D.
But you noticed
particularly his team up with Nolan as much as you do.
So you wouldn't say they're the best duo?
I would not say they're the best duo.
Who's better?
My best duo, here we go. David Lynch and Angelo Badalamenti. If I'm going to get any movie score pressed on vinyl, I'm going to get Mulholland Drive, I'm going to get Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, I'm going to get Blue Velvet before I get Inception. I said this quite some time ago in the pod. I'd love to watch this without dialogue, just with the score and the visuals, and I might have a different opinion because it is a great score, a really good score. It's not top 10.
Didn't you feel like running when you heard the Mombasa soundtrack? That's just iconic. That scene. I wanted it to go on for another 10 minutes, just so I could hear the soundtrack. It's that good.
I don't know if the Mombasa track is iconic as our cue for Tenet.
Oh, that time, of course, is the number one. You know, it's got, I don't know how many views on YouTube. Hundreds of millions of views. This thing has been listened to.
And I'm going to hijack you here, as we don't do enough of that here at the We Watch This Movie podcast. I feel like their next collaboration, or I should say their next original collaboration, not including the Batman series,
was better.
And I agree. You know the movie I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a breathtaking and emotional, exhilarating experience. And that score, that is truly inspired. Yeah. This just doesn't feel as fresh. Maybe I'm looking at it through 2020 goggles too much.
You're looking through 2020 goggles, which is fine.
Because it's now been done to death, and it's shown up in trailer after trailer after trailer.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's so iconic. How many people copied this? How many people copy Hans Zimmer's flavour over the years?
Well, he copies it himself.
I think I really do. If you look at Hans Zimmer's work, you'd think that there'd be a lot of crossover in terms of his music over the years, but the way he's able to craft his music, it all sounds pretty different to me. Even though he's done so many movies, you'd think there'd be a lot of crossover. There isn't as much as you'd think, I feel. So, yeah, I'll write his D all day. I don't want to say that in the pod.
Mate, you already have.
Everyone knows he's my favourite, okay? It's enough. I guess there's enough. I can go on about it all day, but I really do believe this is one of the best soundtracks of the generation. So,
what do you think of Edith Piaf, whose name we've absolutely butchered? Not that we've ever done that here in the show before. What do you think of her track showing up and the bit of inspired casting with Marion Cotillard, who'd played her in an earlier picture?
Well, that's what inspired the soundtrack, I'm pretty sure. If you read it,
do you want to give your rendition of Non Généreux?
No, I couldn't. There has to be a level of respect on this show. We do.
What about you and I together? Can us done?
Oh no! Please, Jackson.
Listeners, I'm so sorry. I tried to get it out of him, but it's been banished.
We'll do it for episode 50 when we review Interstellar.
Whoa, you heard it
I've
first.
just called it. Sorry. When we review Interstellar, whether it's 50 or not, we'll both do a rendition of the docking scene together. We'll record the lines. I'll be Cooper. You can be
Tars,
and I'll do a bit of Anne Hathaway if it needs to be done, and we will rehearse that scene.
Can I do the score as well?
That'll be a fun clip to play. But would you put this, Jackson, out of all the Nolan films you've seen? Now I'm guessing you've seen all of them now, barring a couple, maybe. You haven't seen Following.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen Following. I haven't seen Insomnia, although I have watched bits and pieces. And I feel like there's another... Oh, you haven't seen Dunkirk. That's the other one that's escaped me in this podcast.
So from the ones you have seen, where does this rank?
This is up there.
Okay.
This is up there. I don't want to use verbiage like top 5 because it's all... I mean, I have to go back and kind of watch them all over again. It's up there. Is it as high as what I thought of it in 2010? No, but it's still definitely up there.
So
I'd watch this 5 times over rather than watching The Prestige 5 times over.
Really? Okay. So you would put this lower than Interstellar, and you put this lower than The Dark Knight.
Interstellar, I've got mixed feelings on. That's a movie I've only watched once. The Dark Knight, I feel like it's going to sit lower than The Dark Knight. In fact, Dan, it sounds like you could be leading to something here. Do you want to tell us where you'd rank it?
Jackson, I'm leading somewhere. Now, in terms of Nolan favourite films, this is in the bottom tier for me. I have it at Dark Knight at number 1, and I have Interstellar at number 2, and then I have The Prestige at number 3. They're my top 3. Bottom 3, I'd probably have Rises, Insomnia, and Following, in no order, those 3. But I think Interstellar might be 4th lowest. It's funny, I absolutely love the film, but it just didn't resonate on an emotional level like some of the other films on that list did. Jackson, now we're going to go into the ending. We haven't touched on the ending of this film. There's so many theories. There's so much stuff to discuss here. What was your interpretation of the ending?
My interpretation, whenever I considered it flips and changes a bit. At the time, when it came out, I remember believing, yes, Cobb's back to his family. This is the real world. That spinning top, it was starting to fall. That last, fade to black, that was just a wink and a nod to the audience from Nolan that he's this masterful filmmaker and he's put together this perfect picture. Nowadays, I kind of like the cynical take that it was all still happening in the dream world, and that's where Cobb retired.
Yeah, I thought you'd go right down that, right? Yeah, I thought you would.
A bit of those Joey Pants and the Matrix vibes, where he'd much rather live in a fantasy than the ugly, disgusting reality. And you know what? You can even read into this as the ending, just how deep, how many levels in are we? Because at one point, about 5 minutes in, we get woken up on a Japanese JR train on the Shinkansen. And was that all a dream? That's meant to be interpreted as reality. But how are we getting from country to country so quickly? How does he manage to get around everywhere with these dodgy papers? Like, there's a bit going on,
Yeah,
there's
a
lot of
that.
leaps in logic, and no, that's not uncommon for a Nolan film. But...
Hey,
yeah, see,
but
we're
you
back
can
to
say
it.
that, but there's always evidence to back it up. Like, that could be a dream, so he's safe from the plot hole element. Anyway, I think he's in reality. I believe that, and I think even Nolan would say that. I feel what gives it away for me is the wedding ring. I don't know if you know this, Jackson.
Oh, here we go.
The wedding ring is always shown in dream sequences, but it's never shown in reality. All the scenes in reality, there is no wedding ring. And in that final scene, well, it's tough because in the final scene we don't see the ring. He cuts it off very intentionally, which I like. But you do see his hand when he's in the airport, and there was no wedding ring. So
are we reading into this a little bit too much? Is
no,
it just a continuity error? Because Nolan has plenty of continuity errors in his movies. Both The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises have some dodgy bits of editing.
You reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time seeing The Dark Knight Rises, where that big fight scene between the police and the terrorists, and we've got Batman and Bane punching on in the film's third act. All this punching going on between the police and the terrorists, no one's hitting one another. The extra work is absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, but that's like
you're watching it and you're like, this. Whoever was the AD or head of or in charge of this stunt coordination, he's not going to be looked at favorably here. And then you go to The Dark Knight, and Heath Ledger is the Joker. He's firing off that rocket launcher. Are they trying to chase down? Is it Commissioner Gordon or Harvey Dent? I can't remember. And it goes from night to day, and then the geography of where the cars are flips around. There's a rocket that explodes from the left to the right.
That doesn't take it out for you, does it?
No, it doesn't take it out of the experience, But my point is,
You're
when
just
Nolan
saying
is
that
someone
could be
who-
an overlooked
Yeah.
element. Yeah,
And no one's perfect. Tarantino has heaps of these errors in his film as well. Every movie does.
You can't
so
imagine
are we just
how
reading
much,
into something?
Yeah, every film has a goof. It's must be so difficult to try and get I think they actually get people in now to focus on those things, like focus on how much food's left. You know, I know that food errors happen all the time because people are eating something and
there's production designers that take photos of these things, and there's even this is going back like a century into movies. There's script supervisors that will sit there and make sure that between shots the same words are spoken and there's the same blocking and things like that. And you're right, they are expensive, elaborate productions, particularly in a movie like this with so many action scenes and practical effects, that if a character was missing a ring from one shot to the next, it's probably going to get past.
Well, to back up my evidence as well, Michael Caine is only seen in the reality. All his shots are in reality, and that's what Nolan even told Michael Caine. He's divulged that in an interview, saying that that's what Nolan told me. All my scenes are in reality. So that's more evidence as well, and that sounds quite right. Also, there's this whole subject matter, Jackson, of does it even matter? You know, he's with his kids now. He's found his peace. He doesn't even look at the totem's result because he's happy where he is now, and it's the subjectivity there of your reality, whether it's real or not. You can be happy in that reality. Doesn't matter.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's mentioned to him when he has his passport stamped, when he's getting looked at the papers at immigration and customs. They say to him, "Welcome home, Mr. Cobb." So for him, he's come home. You said it, Dan. He's found his peace, and your peace and your reality is what you make.
And that's why it's such a great ending, because we're still talking about it 10 years later. There's still theories coming out, and it's Nolan's. He even said it's his most asked question that about all his films. That's the one question that people continually ask him is what is it reality? Is it not? And I mean, your cynical take. Do you really believe that? I mean, it's definitely plausible, and it leaves it open enough to say that, and especially like to even think about that theory is really, really interesting to me, because when she questions her reality and she falls off, she kills herself.
Yeah,
does she actually go to that back to reality? It is plausible. It really is.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's stuck in this reality of his own.
Yes, certainly. And because Cobb is the director in this team, and it's his vision, and we seem to be steeping into his subconscious, where we get down to that final level in. I'm doing air quotes here for our listeners. Sorry, it's not a video cast; it's a podcast, audio cast. When we're going down to that deepest possible level to rescue Fisher and Saito, are we just playing around with Cobb? Is he still the master of puppets, as it were?
Well, I don't know if this is, again, a continuational error, like you said, but in the Mombasa scene, that's supposed to be reality, and there's some shots where it feels like it's closing in on him, on Leo, as he's running. Maybe that's just sneaky camera work, but to me it felt like it was a dream, but it wasn't. Maybe he's just trying to play around with us there. I don't know, but there's so many ways you can read into it, because it's so basic, dream versus reality. At the core of it is hard to distinguish. We can make as many points as we want here, but it's left up to interpretation. It's an ambiguous ending. I feel like he's in reality. You truly think he's not?
On this watch?
On this watch, yeah.
On this watch, I maintain that mindset. It wasn't something that I read prior and then believing as I went in to watch it for our podcast, okay, I have to accept now that Cobb's definitely just living in a dream world. He can't be in reality. That's what I gathered, having now watched it again and picked up on some of the interplay between him and the projection of Maul, that maybe he never made it quite out. And even though at the very end he has, and I'll admit, it's a touching moment when he says to her that you're not perfect, you're not imperfect, you're not her, you're not real. I'm only paraphrasing.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah, that I still like to believe that there's something else going on. And it's a movie that is going to invite another rewatch. Dan, you've said it. A 10 out of 10 for you has to be something that's emotional and almost to an overwhelming point. A 10 out of 10 for me is a film that, whether it's the first or fifth or 50th watch, is still going to have me feeling great. It's still going to inspire some interesting, thought-provoking discussion. And when I say feeling great, I mean stimulated.
Before we get into those final ratings, Jackson, I've got a couple more things here. Firstly, I've got my own little segment. It's called 10 Facts About the Man Himself, Nolan. I'm going to rattle off some facts and you give me your quick thoughts, okay? Number 10.
I can't wait for this one. We haven't spoken about the director enough here at the podcast, let alone this episode.
Film school, number 10. Thoughts on that? It's an inspiration for us, isn't it?
I said neither did Tarantino. Good for them.
Really? Oh, there you go. So the best filmmakers don't go to film school.
No, he worked at a video store, mate. That was Tarantino's movie school.
Number 9. It took him 10 years to write Inception.
Did it take you 10 minutes to find this BuzzFeed article?
Oh, no, you can't find this anywhere. This is exclusive knowledge from the man himself. Number 8. Nolan is a huge fan of the low-rent Saturday Night Live spin-off, MacGyver. He even says he howls with laughter. He is on the floor laughing at I said MacGyver. What I meant to say is MacGruber.
I do like Will Forte. Can't say I've watched that one in quite some time. How did you even dig up that? I mean,
I'll ask the man himself. We're friends.
What, we're at number 8 here? My God.
7. He never works weekends. Jackson, I'm officially a harder worker than Nolan.
And what have you got to show for it?
Moving on, we've got a bonus one here. So technically 11 facts. The Skype footage of Interstellar is actually shot on 35mm. Just a quick one there for you. Number 6. Before he writes the script, don't shake your head like these facts have no inherent value, because you're right, it's still a fun segment. He likes to write on his grandfather's old typewriter the ideas of a script before he goes into the next process. I thought that was interesting. He likes to go back to his grandfather's typewriter.
Definitely not pretentious.
He likes to feel like he's an old school filmmaker. Number 5, he wears the same outfit deliberately on set every single day. He feels like it's
I've never heard of another director doing that.
A waste of energy to choose a new outfit every day. I can't say I disagree with him there. Number 4. Tell me what you think about this. He does not have an email address or personal phone.
What, do we just send him mail via carrier pigeon? No wonder he's not returning your calls.
I don't find email would help me with anything I'm doing. I just couldn't be bothered about it. I actually like not having a cell phone because it gives me time to think. When you have a smartphone and you have 10 minutes to spare, you go on it and start looking at stuff. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong, that's for damn sure.
Are you surprised by that? No, you're not. Number 3, the director is famous for carrying a flask of Earl Grey tea around with him on set.
At least it's on the Earl Grey tea.
Oh, you wanted... What does Tarantino bring with him? A bottle of... Yeah.
Probably a bottle of Jack or something.
Yeah, exactly. Number 2, he wrote a Howard Hughes movie and wanted Jim Carrey to star in it before Martin Scorsese and Leonardo swooped in with The Aviator.
That's a very different Howard Hughes movie, particularly
with
Jim Carrey.
I want to see that, don't you?
That's wild.
And you know what's even crazier?
What are the odds? I'm going to cut you off here, buddy. What are the odds the director of Memento and Insomnia is going to get Jim Carrey around 2003, 2004 to play Howard Hughes in a biopic? I get it. The guy had done The Majestic and he'd done The Truman Show. And I love Jim Carrey, not just for his comedic performances, particularly for his dramatic ones. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, one of my favorites. That is a weird take.
Isn't it? And what's funny is he pits it as the best script he's ever written at the time.
I'm sure it's got better dialogue than this.
Well, I want to see that film resurface. Maybe Jim Carrey's a bit off the rails now. And finally, number 1, Jackson. His favourite movie of all time is Blade Runner.
I'll pay it. I'm so glad you mentioned that. You know what, Dan? This could be a hot take, but you can put Inception up in the same echelon of technical genre films as Blade Runner. Blade Runner is probably number one for practical effects and just a technical achievement and masterpiece in cinema in special effects work. And Inception is up in that same tier. I don't know if it's better, but it's up around that tier.
Dude, there's always been talk about Nolan doing a Bond film, which I would absolutely like. We
got it here.
I wish we could get that film, right? But
we have it. It's called Inception.
Yeah, it's not quite there. We want Bond. But if we could get Blade Runner by Nolan, my God, you might never hear from me again. That's all I'll be doing, rewatching that film. That's the absolute top of the list, what I want to see one day, hopefully. But, yeah, Denis did a Denis and Blade Runner 2049, that's one we'll cover eventually.
But I can't wait to watch it. Still haven't seen it.
What do you think of my segment? Is it sticking around? Are we going to do one for Tarantino? What do you think?
Yeah, I want 10 facts about Tarantino. I want 10 facts about David Lynch. I want 10 facts about Denis Villeneuve.
Okay, I'll bring it back if the audience demands it. We'll find out.
Listeners,
if the
please
retention
DM
rate
us.
goes
Let
down
us know.
at this segment, we'll know. All right, Jackson. We've made it this far. Inception. My final rating for Inception is a 9 out of 10. It didn't get to the 10 out of 10 mark I was hoping for upon a rewatch today. Just fell flat on emotion, but everything else, I mean, this is the film. It's a blockbuster film. This has got everything you want. We've banged on about it enough. I can't say enough good things. It's just lacking. Look, I'd give it a 9.5. If I did 0.5s, it's just missing that X factor to push it all the way further. 9 out of 10 from me. Inception.
Short and sweet. I love it. This is a tough one for myself, for Jackson Marshall, at Marshall on Film. Dan, I'm going to join you. 9 out of 10 dreams within a dream. Coming into this recording, I had this at an 8. I'll admit, I very much played devil's advocate throughout the last hour and a half here, as we've totally torn apart and shredded every inch of this film.
And that's our job.
And
we
you know
pick
what?
it apart. You know?
Yeah, because I have seen it that many damn times, and it still is a marvel. And even now, 10 years after its release, I'm still picking up on brand new things, and particularly the technical aspects of it that I love. I'm going to put it there at a 9 because it still feels fresh.
Yeah, I agree. And
this is one of our best reviewed movies thus far.
It's one of our best reviewed movies for a reason. And the people that only discovered it through a screening on Fortnite, please seek this out at theaters or a big TV. This is meant to be experienced on the big screen, not a Fortnite screen.
This is definitely Nolan's first picture that absolutely stands out as it has to be a theatrical experience. Whether it's in IMAX or in a regular theater, get out of the home cinema and go to the real one whenever we get them back. Probably not for quite some time here in Melbourne.
Yeah, true.
Even more so than The Dark Knight.
Yeah, true. I just think it's like a lot of Nolan's films. Interstellar was probably number one. You know, have to see that in IMAX or the theater. This is up there as well. It's just it's better experienced in that environment, and all his films are like. That's why he's holding off a digital release for Tenet, because he knows that's what his bread and butter is. It's the theater experience.
It's the blockbuster.
It's a blockbuster. He's the king. So 9 out of 10 for both of us. That'll be probably our top film reviewed on this on up there anyway. It's got a case.
It's one of them, yeah. I believe our lost episode, Casino Royale, that has since shot to number 1. However, listeners, on Letterboxd, you'll find our episodes ranked, and part of our ruling, our most recent film, if that's going to equal the same score as an older episode, well, it's going to take its place. So you know what? Both giving this a 9. This is going to be number 1 right now for us.
Boom, number 1, Inception. There you go. Jackson, what about an hour and a half past we are here? Pretty long episode.
It's been a journey. We've gone within many dreams.
This is by far our longest.
We've gotten lost. I think it's time we got out of your subconscious.
Well, are we in limbo? What dream state are we in? Are we in... How many times have we been sedated?
Oh, I think you've put me to sleep with your 10 facts about Christopher Nolan.
Oh, you said you liked it. You said you liked that segment. All right. Well, that's our review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Now we're going to finish off the pod. I pitted Jackson to watch The Gift. He got me to watch Swingers. He finally gave me a decent film to watch after giving me Melancholia and all these bloody boring films. Excuse me.
You like The Bad Lieutenant?
Oh yeah, but still, it's it's not a normal film. I wanted something normal, and finally, Jackson Swingers. I'll go right into it. What an easy watch. At 98 minutes, I think it was. It was just so easy to watch, really funny. Jon Favreau, Vince Vaughn. Can I just say, Vince Vaughn here is about our age. He looks like you in this film. The build, the look. He's the same age, and I'm a bit of a Jon Favreau. I mean, this is you and me in an alternate reality, this film in Vegas.
You're probably right. You might be funnier than Jon Favreau's character, Mike Peters. I'll just say that much.
Yeah,
for
he's
a comedian, he's not all that funny.
He's not. Yeah, he's always been better behind the camera than in front of it, in my opinion. But I still liked him. He's a likable character. But Vince Vaughn, of course, this is his first breakout film, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is a perfect movie for anyone who's in their 20s.
Oh, isn't it?
I mean, it captures every part of you're not quite sure with where you're at, but you just don't give a shit. You've had that bad breakup. You've got no idea how you're going to get over it. You've got friends surrounding you who are going to keep dragging you along to everything, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. Plus, for the director Doug Liman, who's gone on to do Edge of Tomorrow, and
could believe
The Bourne Identity, and all these crazy weird films, how he managed to direct this on, I think it's like maybe 200, 300 grand. It's so damn impressive.
Yeah, I was going to say the cinematography was nowhere near Inception, was it? It was. Let's just be honest here, but
what do you mean? The Reservoir Dogs sequence was gorgeous.
It was a low budget. Okay, this is probably the worst cinematography I've seen in recent memory. Although I've just watched Inception and Stoker, two of the beautifully shot films. But the guy from Vacation's in it, Jackson. I know you haven't seen it. It's a comedy. I always tell you to watch Vacation. Ron Livingston's in this. Must be one of his
how
first
good is Ron
role.
Livingston in this?
Hey, he even said, because I was doing a bit of research for once, he said...
for once. Yeah. Definitely not for Inception.
He said this was like a biopic of their lives, their actual lives. He looks back at this film and thinks that's just what was going on, which is so funny.
It's what Jon Favreau wrote. Jon Favreau was sick of not getting that project, you know? I don't know if it was a bit of entitlement or if he'd taken some things for granted, but both he and Vince Vaughn had kind of flirted with getting that breakout role, even if it was just a supporting part. And because they weren't quite happy with where they're at, well, let's just write something for us to act as ourselves. So they went ahead and did it, and it is a big win.
I love the use of babies. I've never seen someone say baby to a man that many times and get away with it. Vince Vaughn, he's so
well, you know
good.
what? The distributors wanted to tear it out. They were a bit uncomfortable.
What?
They thought it was...
That's
they
the best
thought it was
part.
too much. And this movie totally... breakout role for Vince Vaughn. From this, he goes on to do The Lost World with Steven Spielberg, who cast him off the back of this movie. He went on for the awful Gus Van Sant Psycho remake / shot for shot, basically the same movie all over again. I don't know who thought he could be in that, but yeah, it's so fun. How rewatchable is this?
It's so rewatchable. I could easily rewatch it tomorrow. The babies, mate. I think Vince Vaughn. I want to see more of his earlier work because I think he's gone downhill over the years. He's gone a bit more serious, not downhill, but he's gone a bit more serious. This is perfect for him. Yeah, this is perfect for him. I want to see more stuff from him early on.
He's slightly slimy and smarmy, but still very likable. And you know what, Dan? You are so money, you don't even know it.
That's got to be the most classic line of the film. I love that they're in Vegas as well, because I was recently in Vegas and I just lost a bit of money, so it was actually resonating with me pretty hard for that.
Did you like the idea that all of a sudden at 9 or 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night they're going to do the 3 or 3.5 hour drive from LA to Vegas?
That's what you did at that age, or we are that age, but that's what you do.
I'm still doing it now.
Yeah, you're still doing it now. I honestly thought Vince Vaughn was you in this. This was like watching you in many ways.
Come on, baby.
Hey, don't you reckon?
I said, come on, baby.
Yeah, that was great. No, I reckon it was a lot of fun. I'd give it a 7 with you. I know you gave it a 7. I wanted to give it 8, Maybe I will upon a rewatch, but it's a 7 at this stage. So you're so money, Jackson.
Oh, mate, Dan, I'm flirting between that 7 or 8. I actually had it written down here in my notes that I've pushed it up to an 8. It could be either. Maybe today I'll call it an 8 out of 10. Vegas, baby, Vegas.
It's so easy watching. Can't think of an easier watch, really. It just flew by.
It's a feat of super low budget filmmaking.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, Dan, you challenged me to watch a far darker picture than you'd usually challenge me to. The shoe was on the other foot for once.
Yeah.
And that was The Gift, which is a 2015 Blumhouse picture, both written and directed by Joel Edgerton. Did you know he was much of a screenwriter?
Everyone knows I'm a Joel fan, okay? I reached out to him for an interview. I'm yet to hear a response. We're hoping to get him on the show. Jackson, I want you to take a look at his whole filmography. I want everyone to take a look at this man's filmography. I'm a big fan of what he does. This is his directorial debut. Did you go in blind?
Take over. It's all yours now.
Did you go in blind?
Absolutely.
Great.
What I had heard when this movie dropped is that it was a brave take and had some very subversive elements. That was all I knew. I knew it was a thriller.
Yep.
I knew it was a 3-man show.
Yep.
And there was going to be some weird turns at play.
Beautiful. And how did it come together for you?
For me, Dan, I had The Gift coming in at 7 out of 10 helicopter noises. Now, I'd love to hear what your final rating is. 7 could be low for you. There were some things that held it back. Being a 7, I do want to implore our listeners to go seek this out if they want a different kind of drama thriller. Very psychological, very ambiguous. I just felt like the ending betrayed the movie that came before.
Oh, okay.
I feel like that final 10-15 minutes could have been probably not cut out, but maybe reworked a little bit. Very inspired casting with Jason Bateman to have such a likable actor doing some deplorable things by the end of the picture. It felt almost in the same vein of something like Prisoners, just not quite as grim and depraved. And Rebecca Hall, why haven't we seen her in more?
She is in more than what you think. This was actually what inspired Jason to direct and do Ozark. And if anyone who's seen Ozark will know there's some similarities here. And he hadn't done much serious work.
I haven't seen Ozark.
Yeah, he hadn't done much serious work before this. He was really good in this film, Jason.
Jason Bateman.
Yeah, I thought he was fantastic. But I think Gordo, the weirdo, come on. You had to like Gordo. I was on his side until the end.
I did love hearing about I think it was only like a 5-week shoot, but that after the first 2 weeks where they'd filmed all the other scenes, then for the last final few weeks, Joel Edgerton went from focusing on directing to then focusing on the acting role as Gordo, which took a lot of nuance and had to be very subtle because we never quite knew what to make of him. And you know what, Dan? Part of the ending that just didn't quite resonate with me, and I think some other critics and audiences might feel the same, is that it was disappointing for a film that had Rebecca Hall as the audience avatar and we learn of everything through her. The end of it kind of just was between the two men. I just feel like that was a foot kind of put wrong, and I'm excited though to see what else Joel has done and some other movies that he'll continue to make in the future, because this was like a $5 million movie, which is an astonishing effort. Yes, it's a Blumhouse film, and I'm sure the house in Blumhouse means it's all shot at the one home. So I want to see what else he comes up with. You know what? $5 million went on to do 10 times its budget at the box office, pulled in about 60, and it even outgrossed Fan Four Stick.
Hey, it's a pretty good first effort. Come on.
It's not the first effort though from Nash, Joel's brother, and him, as they've done some cool,
but it's his directorial,
very cool and very ambitious
it's his
short
solo
films like
directorial
Spider.
debut.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really strong opening. I really enjoyed the ending. It was ambiguous. It was creepy. It was unsettling. It was the reveal when he's watching the video. I thought it was really... I had chills at that point. So I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
In the end.
Tonally a fit, but it just, for me, was just like a step too far. It kind of betrayed what had happened in the plot.
Okay, fair enough. Did you... I thought Joel was unrecognizable as Gordo, but I guess you haven't seen much much of his work, so it's harder for you to say. But
I'm totally on board with you. I thought he gave a great performance, and for him to have written, directed, and then starred in it in such a significant role, I want to see what this guy does with 25 million. Give him a bit more to play with. Come on, A24. You want this guy.
Well, you never saw The King, did you? He wrote that. That was a Netflix.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, that was a Netflix film. He didn't want to direct that because he was too scared of the battle scenes. So his mate David, who also they've been a collaboration on for years, he did Animal Kingdom.
Did they do The Rover together with Rob Pat?
Yeah, that's Timothy and Robert, and Joel's in that as well.
Yeah, and Joel wrote that too, didn't he?
Yeah, he wrote it, yeah. So
yeah, I've heard mixed things, but I want to seek that out now.
I think he's really, his writing is on point. You haven't seen Boy Erased, have you, either? That's another one that he's done. He directed that as well. Russell Crowe, Nicole Kidman, and an Aussie all-star there.
Yeah, big time. Huge Aussie cast.
You know what I found the other day? I don't know if I linked you. Hugh Jackman and Joel Edgerton were in a film. I couldn't believe it. 20 or so years ago. Both no names. I forgot the name now, but I've got to watch it. I can't believe it.
That's got to be your favourite film of all time, and you haven't even seen it.
Didn't get
Move
good
over
reviews.
Tenet.
Didn't get good reviews, but anyway. So 7 out of 10. Yeah, I expected you to give it a 7, in all honesty. It's in a similar flavour to the other films I've given you, Coherence and The Invitation. So
I can see where some of the inspiration's seeping in for you.
Yeah, you know now? Yeah. The short film we're working on, let's just say, there's some flavours coming through from all those films. But anyway, Jackson, we're coming up to the end of the show. It's been a whopping around 2 hours. We've been talking about Inception and those other movies, about Inception and Swingers and The Gift. It's been a phenomenal episode. We have dissected the absolute balls out of Inception. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please go over to our YouTube channel and click subscribe. Head over to Spotify, follow us, Apple Podcasts. Please leave a review. It really helps. Send us an email at wewatchthispodcast@gmail.com. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, every social media platform, Letterboxd. You can find me at Dan Allen Movies. You can find him at Marshall on Film with an underscore at the end. Jackson, thank you for joining me. Have you had fun today?
Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure. What a journey we've been through. How many dreamscapes and levels? We may never know.
I don't think we've escaped out of reality. We will when we click stop on the recording.
How silky smooth, so natural.
I think our listeners will forgive us after 2 hours of us talking. Guys, I'm putting the cat out of the bag here. We have got an interview coming up as well with director of I See You, Adam Randall. So he's going to join us for a full episode of the podcast. We can't wait to have him. And yeah, I've seen the film. Jackson's seen the film. We'll give our thoughts and our review next episode. Jackson, anything left for you to say, mate?
Dan, I think that just about does it.
All right, guys. Follow us, subscribe, and stay tuned for our next Nolan review if you're a fan of Nolan. Thanks for listening, guys. We will see you later.
Thanks for sticking it out.